The Texas sun climbs slow and merciless over the asphalt. Heat waves ripple across the empty highway, stretching toward the horizon like something alive. A lone police cruiser idles on the shoulder, engine humming, radar gun pointed down the straight line of Route 9. Inside, Officer Randall Croft sips his coffee, jaw tight, sunglasses hiding the anger that's become second nature. He's been sitting here since dawn, waiting for something, or maybe someone, to remind him he still matters. A black SUV appears in the distance. Clean, polished, steady speed. No violation, no reason, but Randall feels the twitch in his chest, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. He grips the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Possible speed infraction northbound Route 9. Black SUV." "Copy that, Unit 12. Clocked speed?" Randall stares at the numbers. 64, limits 65. He hesitates. 69, he lies. His finger taps the siren switch. Blue lights flash across the empty road. The SUV slows, signal blinking, pulling over to the shoulder with calm precision. Randall parks behind it, the cruiser door creaking as he steps out. His boots crunch against the gravel, hand brushing against the holster at his hip. He approaches slowly, scanning the back seat through tinted glass. The vehicle is spotless, no movement. The driver's window rolls down halfway. "Morning, officer," a deep voice says. Smooth, controlled. Randall adjusts his sunglasses, hiding the scowl tugging at his mouth. "License and registration." "Of course," the driver replies. "They're in the glove compartment. My hands are moving to the right, just so we're clear." The tone is calm, professional, the kind of voice used by someone who's had this conversation before, too many times. Randall's jaw tightens. "Just hurry it up." The man nods once, careful, deliberate. He retrieves the papers, passes them through the window. Randall snatches them without thanks, scanning the ID. Name, Elijah Brooks. Address, San Antonio, Texas. Age, 52. Randall's eyes flick to the small card tucked behind the license, a laminated military ID. He pulls it out. "U.S. Army?" he mutters. "Yes, sir," Elijah answers, eyes still forward. "Retired." Randall chuckles, humorless. "You people love that title, don't you? Retired. Like it means something now." The air shifts. The insult hangs there, heavy and sharp. Elijah doesn't respond. He just sits still, both hands visible on the steering wheel. Randall circles the car once, peering inside. No passengers, no weapons, nothing suspicious, except the calm. That calm unnerves him. He feels smaller standing next to this man who refuses to fear him. "Step out of the vehicle," Randall orders. Elijah exhales softly. "Is there a problem, officer?" "Now!" Randall snaps. The older man nods once, unbuckles, and steps out. He's tall, broad-shouldered, posture straight. His movements are efficient, trained. He keeps his hands raised. Randall notices the chain around his neck, a small bronze star medal dangling from it. It catches the light. "What's that?" Randall sneers. "Souvenir?" Elijah meets his gaze for the first time. "It's a reminder." Randall takes a step closer, voice dropping. "Of what?" Elijah's eyes are steady. "Of who I became while others were still learning what courage meant." The words hit like quiet thunder. For a second, Randall freezes, but pride kicks in before humility can take hold. "Don't get smart with me," he snaps, pushing him lightly in the chest. Elijah doesn't flinch. "You're making a mistake." Randall's hand twitches near his belt. "You threatening me?" "No," Elijah says calmly. "I'm warning you, for your own sake." Somewhere down the road, a car slows, then stops. A phone rises from a window. Recording. Randall notices. He hates it. "Back in your car!" he barks, louder now. Elijah doesn't move. His voice remains level, the same tone he probably used commanding men under fire. "You've already humiliated yourself enough, son." That single word, son, slices through Randall's pride like a blade. "What did you just call me?" Elijah straightens, the sun flashing off the metal around his neck. "You heard me." Randall's hand lands fully on his holster. His pulse hammers. Somewhere deep down, he knows he's gone too far. But control has become something he performs, not something he feels. "Last chance," he growls. "Back in the vehicle." Elijah looks at him, not with anger, but disappointment. "You don't even know who you're pointing that at." Randall hesitates, confusion breaking through rage. "What's that supposed to mean?" Elijah's answer is quiet, steady. It means your father taught me everything you've forgotten. Randall blinks. My… what? Elijah nods toward the badge on his chest. Croft. I served under that name once. Vietnam, Colonel Thomas Croft. That your father? The world narrows. The noise of the road fades. Randall steps back, eyes wide. How do you know my dad? Elijah's expression doesn't change. Because I saved his life. Twice. For a heartbeat, the heat, the sirens, the shame, everything stops. Randall's hand slips away from his gun. His breath catches. The weight of decades, of legacy and ignorance, slams into him like a wave. And for the first time all day, the officer forgets to act like one. The highway hangs in stunned silence. Only the whisper of wind cuts through the heat. Officer Randall Croft stares at the man standing before him, his mind trying to bridge the impossible. My father? The thought repeats like a broken alarm inside his head. Elijah Brooks doesn't move. His hands remain visible, his breathing calm, his presence unshaken. The same discipline that had once commanded soldiers now shields him from chaos. Randall finally manages a word. You knew my dad? Elijah nods. Thomas Croft, Colonel, Vietnam, 1971. I served under him in Da Nang. He was a good man. Randall's throat tightens. He hasn't heard that tone in years, the quiet reverence that comes when someone speaks of his father not as a myth, but as memory. Elijah continues, his gaze unwavering. Your father used to say, respect isn't earned through fear, it's earned through restraint. You remind me of him, except he knew when to lower his weapon. Randall's fingers twitch beside his holster. He looks down at the gun, then back at Elijah. The shame comes quick, like fire. I didn't mean… You did? Elijah interrupts softly, but maybe now you can mean something better. Behind them, another car slows. Then another. Phones rise. The hum of engines becomes a wall of sound. Somewhere a woman calls out, He's a veteran! Let him go! Randall glances over his shoulder. The sight of those cameras tightens his chest. He's been on this side of the lens before, when the department defended another officer's mistake. But now it's him. Now it's his badge, his name, his face. He lowers his hand, stepping back. Sir, Don't call me sir now, Elijah says quietly. You had no problem calling me you people a minute ago. Randall's face burns. I didn't… You did, Elijah repeats, voice steady. And that's the problem. You didn't see me. You saw an idea of me. The words land heavier than any blow. Randall takes another step back. He feels the eyes on him. The crowd, the cameras, the world closing in. A new sound breaks the tension. The low rumble of another cruiser approaching. Blue and red lights swirl against the asphalt. Sergeant Hayes, Randall's supervisor, steps out. Older, heavier, with a look that says he's seen too many bad calls in his life. What's going on here, Croft? He asks, voice clipped. Randall straightens instinctively. Routine stop, sir. Suspect was… Hayes cuts him off, pointing at Elijah. That your suspect? You pulled over a veteran? Randall stammers. He was speeding. Elijah's voice is calm, factual. I wasn't. Radar was clear. Hayes turns to his officer. You logged the speed? Randall hesitates. The silence answers for him. Hayes sighs, pinching the bridge of his nose. God help me, Croft. Do you know who this is? Randall swallows. Yeah, I do now. Elijah says nothing. His posture remains impeccable, shoulders straight, chin high, dignity unbroken. Hayes turns to him. Major Brooks, sir, I'm sorry for this. You shouldn't have been treated that way. Elijah nods once. Apology accepted, but not for me, for him. He glances at Randall. The sergeant looks between them, unsure. What do you mean? Elijah meets Randall's eyes. He's the one who has to live with this. The words strike like truth wrapped in mercy. The crowd murmurs. One phone lowers. The tension doesn't break. It shifts. Randall feels it like a weight pressing into his ribs. Major, my father, he never talked about Vietnam. Most of us didn't, Elijah says. But I remember him. He carried men out of burning vehicles. He gave orders when everyone else froze. Randall's voice cracks. He told me being tough meant standing your ground. Elijah nods slowly. Then he left out the part where standing your ground means standing for what's right. Hayes steps forward quietly. Croft, go wait in your car. Randall doesn't move. Sergeant, That's an order, Hayes snaps. For a moment, it looks like he might argue. Then, shoulders sagging, he turns and walks toward his cruiser. The whispers of the crowd follow him like ghosts. He sits inside, staring at his trembling hands on the wheel. Every inhale burns. He looks in the mirror. Elijah still standing by the road, talking calmly with Hayes. The man doesn't gloat, doesn't rage. He just exists with a strength that Randall suddenly envies. He whispers to himself, "What have I done?" Outside, Hayes finishes speaking with Elijah. "We'll handle it internally, Major." Elijah shakes his head. "No, you'll handle it publicly. That's the only way it changes." Hayes hesitates, but nods. "You're right." Elijah looks down the highway, the endless stretch of road shimmering under the heat. "You know what's funny, Sergeant? I fought overseas so my son could drive the same road without fear, and today I realized he still can't." Hayes looks away. "The world's slow to learn, sir. Then maybe it needs a louder teacher." He walks back toward his car, crowd parting around him. Phones lower. The silence that follows isn't from fear, it's respect. As he opens the driver's door, Randall steps out of his cruiser. Their eyes meet across the distance. For a long moment, neither moves. Randall swallows hard. "Major Brooks," he calls. Elijah turns slightly. "I didn't know," Randall says, voice cracking. Elijah's expression stays calm. "That's the problem, officer. You never do." He gets into his car, starts the engine, and drives away. Smooth, steady, unhurried. The dust lifts behind him, swirling in the sunlight like smoke after a battlefield. Randall stands frozen, watching the taillights fade into the horizon. His hand drifts to his badge, suddenly heavier than ever. Behind him, Sergeant Hayes mutters, "You just made history, son, and not the kind they celebrate." The Texas sun keeps climbing, but Randall Croft can't feel the heat anymore. He stands beside his cruiser, frozen in place, as the world around him starts to move in slow motion. The crowd isn't leaving. Cars have stopped on both sides of the highway. Dozens of phones are out, recording, broadcasting, immortalizing his mistake in real time. His radio crackles, a distant voice shouting for an update, but he doesn't respond. He just watches the dust trail left behind by Elijah Brooks's SUV, the taillights shrinking into the shimmer of the horizon. It's only when Sergeant Hayes shouts his name that sound returns to the world. "Croft, get in the car!" Randall blinks, turns his head. The sergeant's face is red, not from anger, but from disbelief. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Hayes says, stepping closer. Randall opens his mouth, but no words come. He feels like a man waking from a dream, except the nightmare didn't end. It's standing right in front of him. Hayes shakes his head. "You pulled over a Bronze Star recipient, a man who saved your father's life. And you did it on camera." Randall's voice cracks. "I didn't know who he was." "That's the point," Hayes snaps. "You weren't supposed to treat anyone that way, no matter who they are." The words hit like bullets, each one landing where pride used to live. Randall lowers his gaze. His own reflection stares back at him in the cruiser's window. Uniform neat, badge shining, eyes empty. He looks like an officer, but right now he feels like anything but. Behind them, someone in the crowd yells, "We got it all on tape!" The sergeant turns sharply. "Everyone clear the road!" No one listens. The spectators stay where they are, whispering, filming, waiting for the next piece of the story. Randall feels the eyes on him, crawling across his skin like heat. He steps away from the car, breath short, voice breaking. "Sergeant, can we just leave?" Hayes exhales hard. "You're not going anywhere. Internal Affairs will want this scene preserved." "Sir, Save it." Hayes pulls out his phone, dialing the precinct. "Yeah, we'll need a statement team out here. ASAP." Randall hears the words, but they blur together. Statement team. Investigation. Suspension. He's been on the other side of that conversation before, helping cover for someone else's mistake. He never thought he'd be the headline. He mutters, almost to himself, "He said my dad's name." Hayes stops mid-call. "What?" Randall looks up, eyes distant. "He said my father's name. He said he saved him." The sergeant frowns. "Your dad's Colonel Croft, right? Vietnam vet?" Randall nods slowly. Hayes sighs. "Well, that explains why you froze. Guess karma doesn't wait long these days." 10 minutes later, the backup units arrive. 2 patrol cars, 1 unmarked black sedan. A tall woman in a navy blazer steps out. Internal Affairs, clearly. She scans the scene like a surgeon about to cut into something infected. "Officer Croft?" she calls. Randall stiffens. "Yes, ma'am." "I'm Lieutenant Jessa Monroe." We'll be conducting a preliminary inquiry. She nods toward Hayes. Sergeant, we'll need your statement too. Hayes nods, muttering under his breath, this just keeps getting better. Jessa walks up to Randall, clipboard in hand. Let's start simple. Why did you initiate the stop? Randall hesitates. The lie comes easy. He's told it before. Speeding, ma'am, 69 and a 65. She checks the radar log on her tablet. Radar shows 64. Randall swallows. Maybe a glitch. Her eyes lift, cold, sharp. Officer, do you really want to add dishonesty to misconduct? The silence stretches. The crowd's murmurs grow louder. The cameras are still rolling. Randall lowers his head. No, ma'am. Good, she says. Then let's talk about why you escalated the stop. He glances at the ground. The answer sticks in his throat. Because he could. Because it was habit. Because control felt like safety. But none of that sounds right out loud. I don't know, he whispers. You don't know? She repeats. Randall looks up, eyes glassy. I thought I did. From a distance, a familiar black SUV appears again. The crowd turns. Elijah Brooks is back. He parks a few yards away, steps out calmly, holding his phone. The cameras swing toward him like a tide following gravity. Jessa Monroe stiffens. Major Brooks? Yes, ma'am, Elijah says. I heard the investigation started. Thought I'd save you the trouble of finding me. The crowd parts as he approaches. Even Hayes looks uneasy. Elijah stops in front of Randall. No words, just silence. The kind that forces truth out of hiding. Randall's voice trembles. You came back? Elijah nods. A good soldier always finishes what he starts. Jessa gestures politely. Major, you're not obligated to stay. I know, Elijah replies, but he should hear something. Randall's stomach twists. Sir, Don't call me sir unless you mean it, Elijah cuts in. His tone is calm, almost gentle. I don't need an apology for me. You owe that to every person who couldn't film it. Randall's throat closes. He nods weakly. Elijah continues. You think I came back to humiliate you? I didn't. I came back because your father once told me something I never forgot. Randall blinks. What? Elijah steps closer, his shadow falling across the officer's boots. He said, my son will never understand fear until he's the one who causes it. The words land like a verdict. Randall stumbles back a step. His voice breaks. He said that about me? Elijah's eyes soften. Not cruel, just honest. No. He said it about men like you. But today, you became one. The crowd murmurs again, louder this time. Hayes shifts uneasily. Even Jessa looks shaken. Elijah turns to leave. Do better next time, officer. The world's watching. He walks back to his SUV, door closing with quiet finality. The engine starts. Then, before he drives off, he lowers the window. Your father was a good man, he says. He deserved better than this. Then he's gone, the roar of his engine swallowed by the heat, leaving only silence and the faint hum of shame hanging in the air. Randall stands there, eyes wide, pulse hammering. His reflection stares back from his cruiser window, distorted by sunlight and sweat. For the first time, he doesn't see a uniform. He sees a man who finally knows what fear feels like. The sound of Elijah Brooks's engine fades into the horizon, leaving a vacuum behind, one that hums with whispers, camera shutters, and the low static of police radios. Officer Randall Croft still stands there, motionless, like his body hasn't caught up with the fact that it's over. But it isn't. Not even close. Lieutenant Monroe pockets her tablet and says quietly to Hayes, I'll need a full statement by noon. Then, glancing at Randall, you'll be placed on administrative hold pending investigation. Hand over your weapon and badge. The words are clean, procedural, detached. But to Randall, they sound like a sentence being read out loud. He removes his holster slowly, the sound of Velcro ripping through the heat. His badge follows, gleaming once, then going dull in Monroe's hand. Someone will escort you home, she says. Randall doesn't answer. He just nods once, eyes fixed on the highway where Elijah disappeared. The crowd begins to thin. The live streams end, but the internet never forgets. Within minutes, the clip hits every major platform. Racist cop harasses black war hero flashes across screens nationwide. The video shows it all. The stop, the insults, the moment Elijah's voice cuts through with that final line, your father was a good man. He deserved better than this. Across town, in a quiet living room filled with military memorabilia, Thomas Croft sits in his recliner, watching the same clip replay on TV. The sound of his oxygen tank hisses softly beside him, each breath measured. He's older now, silver hair, trembling hands, but his eyes still hold the sharp focus of a soldier. On the screen, his son's name scrolls across the bottom. Officer Randall Croft, Texas State Police. He leans forward, disbelief settling in like frost. The reporter's voice narrates, "Sources confirm the driver, Major Elijah Brooks, served under Colonel Thomas Croft during the Vietnam War and was awarded the Bronze Star for valor." Thomas's heart clenches. "Elijah?" he whispers. He fumbles for the remote, turning up the volume. The video zooms on his son's face. The rage, the shame, the trembling hand on the holster. Thomas mutters, "No, son, no." The screen shows Elijah's calm voice. "Your father taught me everything you've forgotten." Thomas closes his eyes, the oxygen tank hisses. The room feels smaller, heavier. Memories he's kept buried for decades claw their way back. The jungle, the smoke, the day Elijah Brooks pulled him out of a burning Jeep. He whispers again, "He saved me twice." A knock comes at the door. His caretaker, Martha, peeks in. "Colonel, you should rest. The news—" He waves her off, voice trembling. "Get my cane." "Sir, please." "Now." Martha hesitates, then retrieves the old wooden cane leaning by the bookshelf. Thomas grips it, steadying himself. "Where are you going?" she asks. He straightens, the same posture that once led men through fire. "To fix what my son broke." Back on Route 9, the flashing lights are gone. Only 2 cruisers remain, one parked, one towing away the barricades. Randall sits in the back seat of an unmarked car, staring at his hands. The cuffs aren't on, but the feeling is there. Hayes slides into the front passenger seat. "They're taking you downtown. Paperwork first, suspension later." Randall's voice is hoarse. "It went viral, didn't it?" Hayes exhales. "Yeah, real bad. You're trending for all the wrong reasons." Randall leans his head back against the seat. "He knew my father, said he saved him." Hayes doesn't respond immediately. "Is that true?" Randall nods. "Yeah, my dad used to talk about some soldier who dragged him out after an explosion. Never said his name, but it was him." Hayes shakes his head. "You just pulled over your father's savior, and you treated him like—" He stops himself. "You realize what that means?" Randall's voice drops. "It means I'm exactly what he fought against." The words hang there, raw and unfiltered. Hayes glances at the rearview mirror. "You should call him, before the news does." Randall's phone buzzes before he can answer. The caller ID reads, "Dad." He hesitates, thumb hovering. Then he swipes to accept. "Dad?" Thomas's voice comes through, rough, shaky, but clear. "Son, you still wearing that badge?" Randall swallows hard. "Not anymore." "Good," his father says. "You don't deserve it right now." Randall's eyes burn. "I know. Do you know who that man was?" "Yes, sir." "He carried me out of hell, Randall, twice, and you pointed a gun at him." The silence is deafening. Thomas continues, voice low. "I don't care about the cameras or the internet. I care about the man you looked in the eye. You humiliated a soldier who gave you the right to stand there." Randall's lip trembles. "I don't know how to fix it." "Then you start by listening," his father says. "You start by remembering what it cost to give you that badge." The line goes quiet. Then Thomas adds, softer, "You find him, Randall. You look him in the eye again, and this time, you see him." The call ends. Randall stares at the phone until the screen goes dark. The unmarked car rolls forward, the highway stretching endlessly ahead. At that same moment, Elijah Brooks pulls into his driveway on the outskirts of town. The small American flag by his porch flutters in the breeze. He kills the engine, sits in silence. Inside his car, the radio plays the same news story. He listens without expression, just the slow tap of his fingers against the steering wheel. "The officer has been suspended pending investigation. Major Brooks declined to press charges, stating, 'Justice will take care of itself.'" He turns off the radio. "Justice will take care of itself. Maybe, maybe not." He looks toward the horizon where the sun is starting to dip, burning orange across the road. The same road where everything changed just an hour ago. He murmurs, "Some wars don't end overseas." Then he steps out of the car, closing the door behind him. The hum of fluorescent lights fills the precinct like static. The air smells faintly of coffee and cold metal. Officers pass by in silence, pretending not to notice the suspended man sitting at the corner desk with his head in his hands. Randall Croft hasn't moved for nearly an hour. The badge is gone, the weapon gone, but the uniform still clings to him, like a lie that won't come off. Every now and then, someone glances his way, whispers something, then turns back to their paperwork. On the far wall, a muted TV replays the video for the 5th time. Racist cop harasses black war hero. The text crawls across the screen while a reporter narrates what everyone already knows. Randall stares at the footage in silence. The screen shows him, jaw tight, hand on holster, eyes burning with a kind of fear that pretends to be authority. Then Elijah's calm voice echoes through the room even without sound. Randall doesn't need to hear it. He knows every word by heart now. The front doors slide open. The noise in the room stops. Every head turns. An elderly man walks in slowly, cane tapping against the tile floor with military rhythm. His uniform jacket is faded, the metals dull with age, but his presence still commands the room. "Colonel Croft," one of the younger officers whispers, recognizing him from the photos that line the Hall of Honor. Thomas Croft moves forward without a word, eyes locked on his son. His gait is steady despite the tremor in his hand. The silence follows him like gravity. Randall stands, instinctively straightening his posture. "Dad!" Thomas stops a few feet away, leaning slightly on his cane. "Don't call me that, not here." The words slice through the air sharper than any reprimand. The entire precinct goes still. "Sir," Randall corrects himself, voice small. Thomas studies him for a long moment. "You know what I saw this morning?" Randall swallows hard. "Yes, sir." "No," Thomas says firmly. "You don't. You watched it. I lived it." The older man's voice trembles, not with weakness but with fury contained by decades of discipline. "That man you stopped, Major Elijah Brooks, dragged me out of a burning vehicle in Da Nang. I was 23, bleeding out. He carried me through a minefield while taking fire. He saved my life, and I spent 40 years trying to live up to what that meant. And today, my son humiliated him on the side of a road." Randall's throat tightens. "Dad, I didn't—" "You did," Thomas interrupts. His cane hits the floor with a sharp crack. "You looked at a man who earned every inch of his dignity and you tried to strip it from him because of his skin." "I didn't know who he was," Randall pleads. "That's exactly why it's worse." Thomas's voice rises. "You shouldn't have to know a man's name to treat him with respect." The room stays silent. No one moves. Even the hum of the fluorescent light seems to dim. Randall's voice breaks. "I disgraced you." Thomas shakes his head. "You disgraced yourself. The name Croft doesn't protect you from what you've become." He takes a slow breath, chest heaving. "You want to know what the worst part is?" Randall's voice is barely audible. "Yes, sir." Thomas leans on his cane. "When I saw you on that screen, I didn't see my son. I saw every man I spent my life trying to change." The words land heavy. Randall looks down, blinking fast. His reflection stares back from the polished floor, distorted, hollow. Thomas continues, softer now. "Do you remember what I told you when you got into the academy?" Randall nods weakly. "You said, carry the name, but carry it right. And you dropped it today," Thomas says, "in front of the whole country." Randall's hands shake. "I don't know how to fix it." Thomas exhales slowly. "You don't fix it. You face it. You find that man and you make it right. Not because the cameras demand it, because your conscience should." Hayes, standing nearby, finally steps forward. "Colonel, maybe we should move this." Thomas cuts him off with a raised hand. "No, leave it. Let them all hear it. Let every officer in this building remember what happens when power forgets purpose." The room goes dead quiet again. Randall wipes at his face, eyes red. Thomas steps closer, lowering his voice. "Elijah Brooks was more of a soldier than I ever was. And today, he showed he's more of a man than you." Randall's breath catches. The sting of it doesn't fade. It digs in, deep, necessary. Thomas steadies himself, his expression softening for the first time. "But you're still my son. That means you still have a chance to be better." He turns toward the door. "Where are you going?" Randall asks quietly. Thomas stops at the threshold. "To thank the man who saved my life, and to tell him I'm sorry for the one who almost took his dignity." He walks out, the tap of his cane echoing down the hallway. The sound follows Randall long after he's gone. Hayes breaks the silence. Your old man doesn't pull punches. Randall lets out a shaky breath. He never did. Hayes bound sighs. You heard him. Go find Brooks before the media eats you alive. Randall looks up, determination cutting through the shame. Yeah, he says softly. I will. Across town, Elijah Brooks sits on his porch, the day's heat slowly fading into evening. His phone buzzes nonstop. Unknown numbers, news agencies, strangers thanking him, demanding interviews. He ignores them all. Then, a notification flashes. Unknown caller, Thomas Croft. He hesitates, then answers. Elijah, a familiar voice says on the other end, raspy but steady. Thomas, Elijah replies quietly. Been a long time. Too long, Thomas says. I saw what happened. I don't have words. Elijah's voice softens. You don't need them. I'm coming to see you, Thomas says. Tonight. Elijah pauses, glancing at the fading sky. Then I'll be here. He ends the call, sets the phone down, and looks out toward the empty road stretching past his yard, the same road where it all started. He whispers to himself, some things come full circle. The sun slides low behind the Texas horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and rust. Cicadas hum in the trees as a dusty sedan pulls into a gravel driveway. The tires crunch slowly to a stop. Elijah Brooks sits on his porch, rocking gently in a wooden chair, a half-empty cup of coffee in his hand. The sound of the engine makes him look up. The door of the sedan opens, and an old man steps out. Even before he sees the face, Elijah knows the walk. That disciplined, measured gait that never leaves a soldier, no matter how many years pass. Thomas Croft, Elijah murmurs. The retired colonel grips his cane, his movements deliberate but steady. The heat sticks to his skin, but he doesn't seem to notice. His uniform jacket hangs open, his medals dull with time. He stops at the bottom of the porch steps. For a moment, neither man speaks. They just stare. Two ghosts from the same war, meeting again in a different kind of battlefield. Finally, Elijah sets his cup down. You didn't have to come, Colonel. Thomas shakes his head. Yes, I did. His voice cracks slightly. I owed you this long before today. Elijah gestures to the empty chair beside him. Then sit. You look like you're still carrying too much weight. Thomas climbs the steps, the cane tapping against the wood with each step. When he sits, the boards creak under the sound of two men who've seen too much. For a long while, they say nothing. The wind moves gently through the trees. Somewhere, a dog barks in the distance. Thomas finally breaks the silence. I saw what happened. What my son did. Elijah's jaw tightens. So did the whole world. I'm sorry, Thomas says. I'm so damn sorry. Elijah studies him, the deep lines etched by regret and age. You don't owe me an apology for your son. I do, Thomas insists, because I raised him, because every lesson he ignored came from me. He looks down at his hands. When I came back from Vietnam, I taught him to stand tall, to never back down. I told him strength meant control, but I didn't teach him what to do with it. He learned power without compassion. That's on me. Elijah leans back, eyes on the horizon. You taught him what the world taught you, Thomas. The difference is you learned to question it. He hasn't yet. Thomas nods slowly. When I saw that video, the way he looked at you, I saw myself. Not the man I became, the man I was before you pulled me out of that fire. Elijah glances at him. You remember that? Thomas gives a sad laugh. I remember the heat, the smell of smoke, the sound of bullets snapping through the grass. You came out of nowhere, dragged me like I weighed nothing. I told you to leave me, and you said... Elijah finishes the sentence for him, voice quiet. I don't leave good men behind. Thomas nods. You meant it then. You still do. Elijah sighs. Some days I wonder why. The world keeps proving good men are the first ones betrayed. Thomas looks out over the yard. The flag by the mailbox flutters gently in the warm breeze. Maybe, but if men like you stop believing, then the rest of us don't stand a chance. The silence between them grows comfortable. The kind built on shared scars. Thomas clears his throat. He's coming, you know. Elijah raises an eyebrow. Your boy? Thomas nods. He left the station right after I did. Said he was coming here to apologize. Elijah's lips press into a thin line. He shouldn't have to face me tonight. Yes, Thomas says softly, he should. He has to see the man behind the uniform he disrespected. Elijah looks at him, eyes narrowing slightly. And what about you, Thomas? You think seeing me makes things right? The colonel exhales. No, but maybe it's a start. A pair of headlights appears down the road, cutting through the dusk. The sound of gravel under tires grows louder. Elijah doesn't turn around. He just says quietly, "Guess that's him." Thomas grips his cane tighter. "Go easy on him. He's already broken enough." Elijah doesn't answer. The car stops beside the house, engine idling for a moment before shutting off. The door opens. Randall Croft steps out. He's still wearing his uniform, but it looks different now. Smaller somehow, like it doesn't belong to him anymore. His face is pale, eyes red. He sees his father on the porch, then Elijah beside him, and for a second he freezes. Thomas watches him closely. "Come on up, son." Randall hesitates. "Dad, I didn't think you'd be here." "I told you to find him," Thomas replies. "I didn't say I wouldn't be watching." Randall climbs the steps slowly, each board creaking under his boots. When he reaches the porch, he stops in front of Elijah. "Major Brooks," he begins, but his voice fails him. He looks down, unable to hold the gaze of the man he humiliated. Elijah's tone is calm but cold. "You wanted to say something." Randall swallows. "I came to apologize." Elijah nods once. "Then do it right. Look me in the eye." Randall forces himself to meet his gaze. "I was wrong. I saw you as something less when you were everything my father raised me to respect. I don't have an excuse." Elijah studies him, unmoving. "No, you don't." Randall's voice breaks. "I disgrace the name you once saved." Thomas closes his eyes. Elijah leans forward slightly. "You want to make it right? Then stop talking about disgrace and start talking about change." Randall nods, tears welling. "I will." Elijah's voice softens. "Your father's a good man. Maybe you can still be one too." Randall's breath trembles. "Thank you." Elijah stands, his shadow falling across both men. "Don't thank me, earn it." He turns and walks to the edge of the porch, the last light of the sun painting him gold. War teaches you something about men. Some learn how to destroy, the rest learn how to rebuild. I hope you figure out which one you are. Randall says nothing. He just nods, the truth heavy in his chest. Thomas rises slowly beside him. "Elijah," he says softly, "thank you." Again. Elijah gives a small nod. "Once for saving your life. Once for saving your son's soul. I'd say we're even." He looks out toward the fading horizon. The last sliver of daylight disappears, leaving only the hum of cicadas and the quiet promise of change. The porch light buzzes softly above them. The air has cooled, carrying the faint scent of rain that never quite arrives. The three men sit in silence around a small wooden table, the only sound the rhythmic creak of Elijah Brooks's rocking chair. Randall sits rigid, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on the ground. His father Thomas sits across from him, cane resting against the table's edge. Between them, a single glass of water sweats in the humidity, untouched. Elijah breaks the silence first. "You know, I never thought I'd see the day I'd have both Crofts sitting on my porch." Thomas lets out a dry laugh. "Didn't think I'd live long enough for it either." The mood eases, just slightly. Randall doesn't smile. He can't. The weight in his chest hasn't loosened since the roadside. Elijah leans back, eyes studying the younger man. "You said earlier you came to apologize. I believe that. But an apology isn't the end of this, son. It's the beginning." Randall nods slowly. "I understand." "No," Elijah says, voice low but steady. "You want to understand. There's a difference." Thomas glances between them, his expression unreadable. Elijah continues, "You've been trained to see threats, to react. That's what they drill into you from day one. But what they don't teach you is how to see people, to slow down long enough to notice humanity before you reach for authority." Randall's jaw tightens. "You're right. Doesn't mean it's easy," Elijah adds. "We all carry what we were taught. The difference is, some of us choose to question it." Thomas leans forward, voice rough. "That's the problem with our line of work, military or police. They fill you with pride before they teach you perspective." Elijah nods. "Pride's a heavy thing, makes good men blind." Randall finally looks up. "That blindness cost me everything today." Elijah studies his face. "No, not everything. You still have the choice to learn from it. That's more than some men get." Thomas exhales, the sound half sigh, half surrender. "Elijah, I spent my life wearing this name like armor. I wanted him to do the same, but I forgot armor keeps out more than bullets. Keeps out empathy, too. Elijah's eyes soften. You tried to protect him the only way you knew how. Thomas gives a weak smile. And look how well that turned out. Randall shakes his head. It's not your fault, Dad. I made the choice. No one told me to treat him that way. Maybe not, Thomas says, but someone taught you to think that way. The words hang there. Randall nods, accepting the truth instead of resisting it. Yeah, he admits quietly. I guess they did. Elijah reaches for his coffee mug, now cold, and sets it down. You know what the army taught me? You can't lead anyone until you've learned how to listen. That's what your father understood. That's what you'll have to relearn. Randall glances at him. You think anyone will ever forgive me? Elijah's voice is steady. Forgiveness isn't the goal. Accountability is. Thomas taps his cane against the porch floor, the sound sharp in the still air. He's right. You'll spend the rest of your life rebuilding what you broke. But that's the work that makes a man. Elijah leans forward slightly. Tell me something, Officer Croft. When you saw me, what did you see? Randall hesitates. A black man driving an expensive car? Elijah nods slowly. And what should you have seen? Randall's throat tightens. A person. Someone who's earned the right not to be afraid. That's right, Elijah says. Fear's a dangerous thing when it wears a badge. It spreads, turns every encounter into a battlefield. Thomas rubs his temple, muttering, too many of those in one lifetime. For a few moments, no one speaks. The night hums around them. The cicadas, the faraway whistle of a train. The quiet feels earned. Elijah finally breaks it. Thomas, do you remember that kid in the Delta unit? Jenkins, the one who panicked during the ambush? Thomas nods slowly. He froze. Would have cost us all our lives if you hadn't pulled him behind cover. Elijah chuckles. Afterward, he came up to me and said, I couldn't move. I was scared to death. You know what I told him? Thomas smiles faintly. You told him being scared isn't the problem. Staying scared is. Elijah points at Randall. That's where you are now. Scared, ashamed. Don't stay there. Randall looks down. How do I move past it? You don't move past it, Elijah replies. You move with it. Let it remind you of what not to become. Thomas leans back in his chair, the wood creaking beneath him. You listen to this man, Randall. He's saying everything I should have said years ago. Randall swallows hard. I want to do better. I will. Elijah gives a small nod. Then start by using your voice. People will listen to you because of your badge. Use that to change what the badge means. Randall meets his eyes. You'd trust me to do that after what I did? Elijah smiles faintly. Trust is earned. You've got a long road ahead, but the road's still open. Thomas looks toward the darkened sky, voice softer now. You know, for a long time I thought my generation fought the last war. Turns out every generation gets its own. Elijah nods. And some battles don't need guns, just courage. The three of them sit in silence again, the kind that feels almost sacred. Somewhere nearby, thunder rumbles faintly, a storm building in the distance. Elijah stands first, stretching his back. Rain's coming. Guess that's our cue. Thomas rises slowly, leaning on his cane. Thank you, Elijah. Elijah nods. Always, Colonel. Randall stands last. If I come back tomorrow, he asks, will you talk to me again? Elijah looks at him for a moment, then says quietly, if you come back tomorrow, don't come to talk. Come to listen. Randall nods. Yes, sir. Elijah's lips curve into the faintest smile. That's a good start. Lightning flashes in the distance, painting the porch in white light for a split second. The storm isn't here yet, but it's coming. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, they all know it's the kind of storm that cleans instead of destroys. Thunder rolls somewhere beyond the hills, low and distant like the growl of something ancient. The porch light flickers as the first drops begin to fall, fat and heavy against the dust. The smell of rain mixes with earth and old wood. Clean, alive, merciless. Elijah Brooks stands at the porch railing, watching the storm build. The horizon flashes white for an instant, and the sound arrives a heartbeat later. Behind him, Thomas Croft sits back down, his cane resting across his lap. Randall lingers by the door, still unsure if he should leave or stay. You can sit, Elijah says without turning. Rain won't bite. Randall hesitates, then moves toward one of the old chairs. The wood creaks under his weight. Feels like it might wash the whole town away. Elijah half smiles. Maybe that's what it needs. Lightning flashes again, reflecting in the window. For a moment, Elijah's bronze star glints around his neck. The metal that started everything that morning. Randall can't take his eyes off it. He clears his throat. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why'd you come back? After I stopped you. You could have gone home, let the system chew me up. Elijah finally looks at him. Because that's not how things change. If I walk away angry, you stay the same. If I come back, maybe one of us learns something. Randall nods slowly. I think I did. Elijah studies him for a moment. Learning's just the first step. Living it is harder. Thunder cracks again, closer this time. Rain starts to fall in earnest, beating against the porch roof. The three men sit beneath it, the steady rhythm filling the silence between words. Thomas rubs his temples, voice low. You remember, Elijah, how the rain used to sound in the jungle? Elijah chuckles softly. Like steel on tin. Yeah, Thomas says, his voice drifting. I used to think storms meant safety. Nobody fought in the rain. It was the only time you could breathe. Elijah nods. You ever realize that was a lie? We were just too tired to fight. Thomas smiles faintly. Maybe. Randall listens, eyes moving between them. You two talk like you never left the battlefield. Elijah doesn't look away from the rain. That's because we didn't. The field just changed shape. Thomas turns to his son. He's right. Some wars don't use bullets. They use fear, pride, power. Randall leans forward. And I've been on the wrong side of it. Elijah finally faces him fully. Maybe, but you crossed over tonight. Lightning flashes again and thunder follows quick. For a moment, all three men sit illuminated. Past, present, and the thin thread connecting them. Randall breaks the silence. They'll probably fire me. Thomas exhales. You earned it. Elijah adds quietly, losing a badge isn't losing purpose. Depends on what you do next. Randall's eyes narrow slightly. You think I could make it right? Elijah shrugs. You can't fix everything, but you can start by telling the truth. Don't hide behind excuses. Say what happened. Show what you learned. Thomas nods. He's right. Your voice matters more now than it ever did. Randall shakes his head. No one's going to listen to me, not after that video. Elijah's gaze hardens. Then don't speak for them. Speak for the ones who can't. The wind picks up, scattering rain onto the porch. Elijah grabs the edge of the flag hanging beside the door, keeping it from flapping too wildly. His hand trembles just a little, not from weakness but from memory. Thomas watches him. You still keep the flag outside? Every day, Elijah says, even when it feels heavier to look at. Thomas nods slowly. You always carried things the right way. Not always, Elijah answers. Some burdens, you just learn how to balance. The rain intensifies, pouring now, the sound almost deafening. Randall leans back in his chair, the spray cool against his face. Feels like it's washing everything off. Elijah glances at him. That's the trick about storms, son. They don't wash away what's done. They just show you what's left. Randall nods, eyes on the ground. Then maybe that's enough. For a long time, none of them speak. They just listen. To the thunder, to the rain, to the silence inside themselves. The lightning flashes less frequently now, softer, almost gentle. Thomas finally breaks the quiet. You know, Randall, your grandfather used to tell me storms were God's way of reminding us he's still here. That no matter what men build, he can still bring it down. Randall lets out a shaky breath. He brought me down today. Elijah turns back to him. Maybe not. Maybe he just leveled the ground so you could stand up straight. Randall looks at him, startled by the calm in his voice. Why are you giving me so much grace after what I did? Elijah's expression doesn't change. Because anger's easy. I've seen enough easy things destroy good men. Thomas nods approvingly. He's teaching you faster than I ever did. The storm starts to move east, the sound fading to a soft patter. The porch glistens under the flickering light. Elijah stands, stretching slowly. You should both go before the roads flood. Thomas rises with effort. You sure you'll be all right out here? Elijah smiles faintly. I've survived worse weather. He reaches out a hand, first to Thomas. They shake, firm and respectful, soldier to soldier. Then he turns to Randall. The younger man hesitates, guilt flickering in his eyes. But Elijah holds the gesture, steady and waiting. Finally, Randall takes it. The grip is strong, steady. A bridge built, not handed. Thank you, Randall whispers. Elijah shakes his head. Don't thank me yet. The world's watching what you do next. Thomas claps a hand on his son's shoulder. Then let's make sure it's worth watching. They step down into the wet yard. Rain runs off the brim of Thomas's old hat. He looks back once. Elijah still on the porch, the stormlight painting him in silver and gold, the flag behind him fluttering slow. Randall opens the car door. He doesn't say much, does he? Thomas smiles faintly. Men who've seen too much don't need to. They get in, the engine turning over, headlights slicing through the wet dark. From the porch, Elijah watches their taillights fade into the mist. The rain eases, turning to drizzle. He exhales, long and deep, then sits back down, letting the water hit his face. "Wash it clean," he murmurs. "All of it." Above him, thunder rolls one last time. Softer now, almost like a promise kept. By the time the rain stops, the roads shine like black glass. Headlights glide over the slick asphalt, reflecting ghostly streaks of white and red. Inside the unmarked sedan, Thomas Croft and his son drive in silence, the rhythmic sweep of the wipers marking every second that passes between them. Neither speaks. The storm outside has ended, but the one between them hasn't. Finally, Thomas breaks the quiet. "You know, there's something about rain," he says, voice low. "It doesn't fix what's broken. It just makes the dirt visible." Randall grips the wheel tighter. Feels like it made everything visible today. His father glances at him. "Good. Maybe you'll stop looking away." Randall exhales sharply through his nose. The road stretches out ahead, a long silver line vanishing into darkness. "He said I still had a choice, that I could make something out of this." Thomas nods. "He was right, you still can." "But who's going to believe me now?" Randall mutters. "I'm the face of everything people already hate." "You made yourself that face," Thomas replies, calm but unflinching. "Now you can decide what it means." They drive in silence again. The city lights begin to appear, scattered halos of gold breaking through the mist. Randall swallows hard. "Dad, what would you do if you were me?" Thomas turns toward him slowly. "I'd tell the truth, the whole truth, then I'd live with it." Randall frowns. "You think that's enough?" Thomas shakes his head. "No, but it's a start." They pull into the precinct lot. The fluorescent lights above cast long shadows across the wet pavement. Inside, the building glows faintly, still awake even at this late hour. Randall kills the engine. For a long time, neither moves. "You don't have to come in," Randall says quietly. His father chuckles, rough and dry. "After the day you've had, you think I'm letting you face it alone?" Randall almost smiles, then steps out. The rain has stopped completely now, leaving the air heavy and clean. He hears the echo of his boots against the concrete as they walk toward the doors. Inside, the atmosphere is colder. The night shift looks up as they enter, whispers starting immediately. Randall keeps his eyes forward. He's felt the stairs before, but never like this. Lieutenant Jessa Monroe is waiting near the front desk, tablet under her arm. Her eyes narrow as they approach. "Officer Croft," she says. "Back already?" Randall stands tall. "I need to make a statement, publicly." She raises an eyebrow. "You sure about that? Internal Affairs will finalize everything in the morning." "I'm not waiting for morning," Randall says. Thomas rests a steady hand on his cane. "Let him do it, Lieutenant. The boy's got something worth saying before this gets rewritten by the news." Jessa studies him, then sighs. "Fine." Briefing room's empty. They follow her down the corridor. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, and the smell of stale coffee fills the air. When they reach the small press room, Randall pauses at the doorway. The empty podium stands there, the city seal gleaming faintly beneath the lights. Thomas whispers, "Don't think, speak." Randall nods and steps forward. A handful of reporters have already gathered outside, hungry for an update. Within minutes, word spreads that the officer from the viral video is about to speak. Cameras and microphones fill the small space, cables snaking across the floor. Randall takes his place behind the podium. He looks out at the lenses pointed at him, cold, unblinking eyes of the world he can't escape. He feels the weight of Elijah's words pressing on his chest. "Don't talk about disgrace, talk about change." He clears his throat. "My name is Officer Randall Croft." The room quiets instantly. "This morning, I stopped a man who did nothing wrong. I treated him with disrespect, prejudice, and fear. That man was Major Elijah Brooks, a decorated war veteran and a hero. He saved lives, including my father's, long before I ever wore this badge." The cameras flash. He continues, voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. "I want to make something clear. I wasn't ordered to do what I did. Nobody told me to. I made that choice myself and I have to live with it. But the truth is, I've been living with it for a long time, the way I see people, the assumptions I make. Today, I saw what that looks like from the outside, and I hated it. He pauses, scanning the room. This isn't just about one stop, one video, or one officer. It's about the culture that lets us act before we think and judge before we see. Major Brooks didn't press charges. He gave me something harder to live with, the chance to do better. I intend to earn that. A reporter calls out, "Are you resigning, Officer Croft?" Randall looks down at the badge sitting on the podium. The medal catches the light. "No," he says. "I'm returning it. A symbol only means what the person behind it stands for, and right now, I don't deserve it." He slides the badge across the podium. The click of metal against wood echoes through the room. Another reporter shouts, "Do you expect forgiveness?" Randall shakes his head. "No, forgiveness isn't something I get to expect. But maybe, if I'm lucky, I can help someone else not make the same mistake." The room is silent. Cameras keep rolling, but no one speaks. Thomas steps forward quietly, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. His voice is soft but carries through the room. He's right. Justice isn't about punishment. It's about understanding what it costs to be blind. The flashbulbs go off again, but neither man moves. Randall finally exhales, the tightness in his chest breaking loose. "That's all I have to say," he murmurs. He steps away from the podium, the sound of his boots echoing against the tile. As he passes the reporters, none of them speak. The silence feels like something sacred. Outside, the first light of dawn begins to rise over Monroe, thin and gray but real, like a promise that the worst is over, but the work isn't. Dawn creeps slow over Monroe. The rain from the night before has left everything slick and shining. Puddles mirror the pale pink sky, and the city hums with a strange quiet. Not peace, but anticipation. Inside a small diner off Main Street, a TV above the counter replays the same footage on every channel. Officer Randall Croft's public statement. The volume is low, but the subtitles flash across the screen. Patrons whisper between bites of breakfast, their voices a mix of judgment and disbelief. At one corner table, Elijah Brooks stirs his coffee. He hasn't slept. The storm outside last night felt like it crawled inside him. Now, as he watches the replay, he studies Randall's face. The trembling voice, the quiet surrender, the part where he slides the badge away. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, stops beside him. "You know, everyone's talking about that man," she says. "Can't believe he owned up to it." Elijah's gaze stays on the screen. Owning up is the easy part. What comes next is harder. She nods thoughtfully. "You think he meant it?" Elijah sips his coffee. "He'll have to prove it." Across town, the precinct is buzzing like a hive. Reporters camp outside the front doors, their cameras pointed at the building as if waiting for someone to fall apart. Inside, Lieutenant Jessa Monroe scrolls through her tablet, reviewing public statements and department memos. Every headline carries the same tone. Disgraced officer takes accountability. Some call it courage. Others call it damage control. Thomas Croft sits quietly in her office, hat in his lap, watching through the glass as his son signs forms at the front desk. Randall's uniform is gone now. He's in plain clothes, sleeves rolled up, eyes bloodshot but steady. "You sure you want to go through with this?" Jessa asks the older Croft. Thomas nods. "He needs to. The badge was his wall. Maybe losing it will make him see what's behind it." Jessa folds her arms. "For what it's worth, Colonel, I think he meant every word last night. Not many would stand in front of cameras and tear themselves open like that." Thomas gives a small nod. "You learn a lot about yourself when the world stops applauding." Outside, Randall finishes signing. When he turns, he finds his father standing by the door. "Ready?" Thomas asks. "Yeah," Randall says softly, "as I'll ever be." They walk out together through the crowd of reporters. Microphones thrust forward. Questions fly like arrows. "Officer Croft, are you fired? Will you face charges? Did the department force your statement?" Randall doesn't stop walking. His voice is even when he says, "No comment." Thomas follows close behind, muttering, "You handle that better than I expected." Randall manages a faint smile. "Elijah told me not to run anymore." Back at Elijah's house, the morning light spills across the porch. He's polishing the same metal that caught the sunlight yesterday, the bronze star, dulled by years but still solid, still real. A car slows in front of his house. Reporters. He ignores them. He's already turned down 3 interview requests this morning. His phone buzzes again. Another unknown number. He almost silences it, but something makes him answer. "Major Brooks?" a voice asks. "Who's this?" "Chief Harris, Texas Department of Public Safety. I wanted to thank you for how you handled yesterday. Not many would have shown that kind of restraint. Elijah's tone stays calm. Restraint isn't a favor. It's what should have been normal. The chief clears his throat. You're right. Still, it made an impression. There's talk of revising our training modules statewide. Your names come up. Elijah's brow furrows. My name? Yes, as a consultant. Someone who's lived what we need to teach. Would you consider it? Elijah glances at the flag outside his window, still damp from the rain. If it means fewer sons making the same mistakes, then yes. Good, the chief says. We'll be in touch. When the call ends, Elijah sets the phone down slowly. He doesn't smile, but something shifts behind his eyes. A faint flicker of purpose he hasn't felt in years. Meanwhile, Randall and Thomas sit in a small park near downtown, away from the noise. The air smells of wet grass and coffee from a nearby vendor. Thomas leans on his cane, watching a group of kids race their bikes down the path. You see that? He says quietly. That's what all this is supposed to be for, so they don't have to look over their shoulder. Randall nods. I saw it in his eyes. He's been looking over his for decades. Thomas glances at him. And now? I don't know, Randall admits. He told me not to talk, to listen. So that's what I'm going to do. Thomas smiles faintly. That might be the smartest thing you've ever said. They sit in companionable silence for a moment. The sun climbs higher, burning off the last of the mist. Dad, Randall says after a while, do you think people can really change? Thomas taps his cane against the ground, thinking. People can, pride can't. You just have to decide which one you are. Randall exhales slowly. I think I finally know. He looks toward the horizon, where the highway cuts through the trees, the same road where everything began just 24 hours ago. He whispers, I want to meet him again. Not as a cop, as a man. Thomas nods. Then you better show up ready to listen. By noon, Elijah sits on his porch again, the city alive around him. He hears the faint buzz of a reporter's drone somewhere overhead, but he doesn't care. His coffee's gone cold. The storm is over. The sound of gravel crunching draws his attention. A figure approaches slowly on foot. No flashing lights, no uniform, just a man in jeans and a gray shirt, hands visible at his sides. It's Randall. He stops a few feet from the steps. Morning, Major. Elijah studies him for a moment. You came back? I told my father I would. Elijah nods toward the porch. Then don't stand there. Sit. Randall climbs the steps, sits opposite him. The silence stretches between them again, the kind that isn't awkward, just real. I don't have a script this time, Randall says quietly. Good, Elijah replies. Truth doesn't need one. They sit like that for a long time, the morning sunlight washing over both of them. No cameras, no noise, just two men breathing the same air, beginning the work neither can do alone. The air is still cool from the night before, the kind of air that carries the smell of wet wood and earth. The porch boards creak softly as Elijah Brooks leans back in his chair. Across from him, Randall Croft sits stiff, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight. For the first time, there are no uniforms between them. No badge, no weapon. Just two men who've run out of excuses. Didn't expect you so early, Elijah says finally, breaking the silence. Randall nods. Didn't sleep. Good, Elijah replies, his tone flat. Guilt doesn't let you rest. That's its job. Randall looks up. Then I guess I'm doing that job well. Elijah studies him for a moment. You came here for a reason. What is it? Randall takes a slow breath. I said what I had to say last night, but words, they don't fix anything. You were right. If I want to change, I have to start by listening. Elijah's eyes narrow slightly. So listen. Randall hesitates. To what? To what it feels like when someone decides you're a threat before you even breathe. The words hang heavy in the morning air. Randall doesn't respond immediately. He stares at the ground, watching a drop of water slide off the porch rail and disappear into the dirt. Elijah continues, voice low but firm. You pulled that gun because of a feeling. Fear, pride, whatever you want to call it. You thought it made you in control. But all it made you was blind. Randall swallows hard. You're right. I don't need to be right, Elijah says. I need you to understand why it happens. You weren't born that way. You were taught by a world that still can't tell the difference between caution and contempt. Randall looks up. Then how do I unlearn it? Elijah leans forward. By being uncomfortable. Every day. By standing where you used to stand with power and letting someone else speak. By knowing you'll never understand completely, and trying anyway. Randall's throat tightens. You make it sound simple. It's not, Elijah replies, but neither is respect. It's a discipline, same as any other kind of training. You mess up once, you start again. The porch goes quiet again, except for the distant hum of a lawnmower somewhere down the road. Elijah glances toward the flag by the mailbox, its edges still damp, fluttering gently in the breeze. You know why I still fly that? Randall shakes his head. Because it reminds me what it's supposed to mean, Elijah says. Not what people turned it into. It's easy to wave something and call it pride. Harder to live like it's worth believing in. Randall looks down. I thought wearing that uniform meant I was serving it. Elijah shakes his head. You were serving the idea of it, not the people under it. Randall's jaw flexes, the truth cutting deep. You've spent your life fighting for a country that doesn't always fight for you. How do you keep doing it? Elijah's gaze drifts out toward the road. Because giving up is a luxury we never had. My father fought for this flag. I fought for it. And I'll keep fighting for the day it means the same thing to everyone. Randall's voice softens. You think that day'll ever come? Elijah smiles faintly. Not if we stop trying. They sit in silence for a while. The hum of cicadas starts to rise with the warming air. Somewhere, a church bell rings. 1, 2, 3 times. Randall leans back, eyes distant. The chief called me this morning. Said they might ask you to help rewrite the training curriculum. Elijah nods. He called me too. And? I said yes, Elijah says simply, because talking about it isn't enough. They need to see what it looks like from this side. Randall studies him. You think they'll listen? Elijah meets his eyes. They'll have to, because I won't let them look away. Randall exhales. Then I want to help. However I can. Elijah raises an eyebrow. You're not a cop anymore. I don't need a badge to do the right thing, Randall says quietly. I can still speak. Maybe if they hear it from me, they'll believe it faster. Elijah leans back, considering this. You'd be putting yourself in front of the same people who already hate you. I know, Randall replies. That's the point. A faint smile tugs at the corner of Elijah's mouth. You've got your father's stubborn streak. Randall chuckles weakly. Guess that makes 2 things we have in common. The sound fades into another long pause. The world around them feels clearer now, like the rain washed away everything unnecessary. Elijah finally stands, stretching his back. If you're serious about helping, come by tomorrow. We'll start early. Randall blinks. Start what? Talking to recruits, Elijah says. I've been asked to address the next orientation. You'll come with me. Randall hesitates. You trust me to stand beside you? Elijah glances back over his shoulder. I don't have to trust you yet. I just have to see you show up. Randall nods slowly. I'll be here. Elijah picks up his medal from the table and turns it over in his hand. The medal catches the sunlight, flashing briefly. You ever wonder what courage looks like? He asks. Randall frowns. I used to think it was standing tall. Elijah smiles. It's kneeling down when you're wrong, and getting back up anyway. He sets the medal down gently. You've done the first part. Now we see about the second. Randall stands too, the porch groaning beneath their weight. I'll be back tomorrow, he says. I'll be here, Elijah answers. They shake hands again, firmer this time, no hesitation. When Randall steps off the porch, the morning light catches the wet grass, reflecting tiny sparks of gold. He looks up once more before walking toward his car. Elijah stands at the doorway, watching. Neither of them says goodbye. The day's just beginning, and some stories aren't ready to end yet. By noon, the sun sits high over Monroe. The storm clouds are gone, the air washed clean. Outside the State Police Academy, rows of recruits in crisp uniforms stand at attention, the heat pressing against their shoulders. They expect a routine briefing, not what's about to happen. Inside the auditorium, the air hums with quiet chatter. A banner at the front reads, Policing with Purpose, See Before You Act. Randall Croft sits alone in the second row, his hands clasped tightly between his knees. His shirt sleeves are rolled up, his tie slightly askew. He looks nothing like the man on the morning news. That's the point. The doors at the back open and Elijah Brooks walks in. The room goes silent almost instantly. Even among officers, respect has a sound, and it's this. He moves with calm precision, the kind that never needs to demand attention. The small medal around his neck glints faintly under the fluorescent lights. He takes the podium, sets down a few notes, and looks out across the sea of expectant faces. "Morning," he begins. His voice carries easily, steady but warm. "You all came here to learn how to serve. Some of you think that means control. Some of you think it means protection. Both are wrong if you don't understand people first." He pauses, letting the words settle. "My name is Major Elijah Brooks, United States Army, retired. Yesterday I was pulled over by one of your own." A ripple moves through the room, whispers, eyes darting. Randall feels it hit him like a wave but stays seated, unmoving. Elijah continues. "He treated me like a criminal, not because I was breaking the law, but because I was breathing in the wrong skin." The room tenses. No one dares move. "But that's not the end of this story," Elijah says. "Because that man is here today." Every head turns. Randall stands slowly, his chest tight but steady. He walks toward the stage. The sound of his footsteps echoes across the floor, sharp, measured, unflinching. Elijah steps aside, giving him space at the podium. Randall faces the crowd. Dozens of eyes watch him, some skeptical, some sympathetic, all waiting. He grips the edges of the stand, takes a breath, and begins. "My name is Randall Croft. Until yesterday, I wore the same badge most of you are training for." His voice doesn't shake. He refuses to let it. "I thought I knew what that badge meant. Authority, control, law. I was wrong. It means responsibility. It means seeing people before situations and hearts before rules. Yesterday, I forgot that. I stopped a man who's done more for this country than I ever will, and I treated him like a suspect." He looks out across the room. The recruits are silent, the kind of silence that means they're really listening. "You'll hear people tell you fear keeps you alive," Randall continues. "They'll tell you hesitation kills. But fear without judgment is just prejudice wearing a uniform. And hesitation," he stops, finding the right word. "Hesitation can save a life if it gives you one more second to think before you pull that trigger." Elijah watches from the side, arms crossed, face unreadable. Randall continues, "Yesterday could have gone differently. One wrong move, and I'd have been the man on a headline none of you would want to read. The only reason it didn't happen is because the person I stopped showed more discipline than I did." He glances at Elijah. That's the kind of strength they don't teach in training. But they should. A murmur ripples through the room. One recruit, a young woman in the front row, raises her hand. "Sir, can I ask something?" Randall nods. "Go ahead." "What made you stop?" she asks. "When you realized who he was?" Randall hesitates for just a second. It wasn't his name. It wasn't his medals. It was his eyes. I saw something in them I hadn't seen in a long time. Disappointment. Not anger, not fear, just disappointment. And it broke me. He steps away from the podium. "You all came here to protect people, but that means all people. Don't wait until you ruin a life to figure that out." The room stays silent for a long time. Then Elijah steps back to the microphone. "Every one of you will face a moment like that," he says. "It won't look like mine or his, but it'll come. The choice you make in that second will define not just your career, but your soul. What you do after that moment, that's what makes you who you are." He lets the silence hang for a moment longer, then adds, "You're not just enforcing laws. You're deciding what kind of country we live in." Applause breaks out. Hesitant at first, then rising, steady and sincere. Some recruits stand. Others wipe their eyes. Randall steps back beside Elijah, unsure what to do. Elijah leans slightly toward him and murmurs, "Not bad, officer." Randall huffs a quiet laugh. "I'm not an officer anymore." Elijah gives a small smile. "Didn't say you weren't one, just said you weren't wearing it." The two men share a brief nod, the kind soldiers and survivors give each other when words won't do. As the recruits file out, some stop to shake Randall's hand. One young man says quietly, "I'll remember that." Randall just nods. "You'd better." When the room finally empties, Elijah gathers his notes. "You did good," he says. Randall looks down at the empty chairs. "I just told the truth." "That's what good sounds like," Elijah replies. They walk out together into the bright sunlight. The air smells of heat and fresh pavement. Randall looks up at the flag flying over the academy. The same flag Elijah keeps on his porch. And for the first time in his life, it doesn't look like a symbol of power. It looks like a promise. By mid-afternoon, Monroe hums with something new. Not chaos, not outrage, but conversation. It drifts through diners, classrooms, and coffee shops. It buzzes on car radios and phone screens. Everyone's talking about the same thing, the veteran and the officer who shared a stage instead of a fight. At the police academy, recruits linger in the hall long after the session ends. Groups form in quiet clusters, voices low but intense. Some talk about fear, some talk about courage. A few, for the first time, talk about empathy like it's a skill that can be learned. Outside, Elijah Brooks and Randall Croft step into the sunlight. The sky is flawless now, the kind of blue that feels earned. "You feel that?" Elijah asks, sliding on his sunglasses. Randall squints. "The heat?" Elijah chuckles. "No, the shift. You said something in there that mattered." Randall shakes his head. "All I did was tell them what not to do." "That's exactly what they needed," Elijah says. "Sometimes knowing what to avoid saves more lives than knowing what to chase." They start walking toward the parking lot. Reporters hover nearby, waiting for a quote, but Elijah waves them off. "Not today." Randall glances sideways. "You ever get tired of being watched?" Elijah smiles faintly. "I spent 20 years being invisible. I'll take watched over ignored." They reach Elijah's truck, the same one from the day before, still bearing the faint scratches from gravel kicked up during the stop. He runs his hand over the hood, eyes distant for a moment. "Yesterday," he says quietly, "I almost hated this thing. Now it's a reminder of how close we came to losing both of us." Randall nods. "Feels like a lifetime ago." Elijah looks at him. "It was yesterday." The words land heavier than expected. Across town, the video from the academy hits the internet. It spreads fast, faster than the first one. This time, there's no shouting, no violence, just truth. Two men standing together. Clips circulate with captions like, "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." He faced the man he hurt and listened. Major Brooks teaches the real meaning of service. News anchors dissect every line of their talk. Some praise it, others call it damage control. But for once, the arguments feel smaller than the message. At a diner off the interstate, a group of older veterans sit around a booth, watching the replay on a muted TV. One of them, a man with trembling hands, points at the screen. "That's Brooks. He was in my unit back in '91. Good man." Another nods. "The cop's got guts, I'll give him that. Owning up like that? Not easy." A waitress passing by shakes her head. "My daddy used to say heroes come in two kinds, the ones who fight and the ones who change." Looks like they found both. By late afternoon, the department headquarters releases a formal statement. Officer Randall Croft has officially resigned. Major Elijah Brooks has accepted a position as a community advisor for statewide police reform programs. Reporters scramble for sound bites, but neither man gives one. Instead, Elijah drives Randall out of town, away from the noise, away from the endless cycle of cameras. They park by the river, the same one that runs past Monroe's old war memorial. The sun hangs low now, painting the water gold. Elijah steps out first, breathing in the humid air. "You ever come out here?" Randall shakes his head. "No, my father used to, though. Said it helped him remember what silence sounds like." Elijah smiles. He's not wrong. They walk down to the edge of the riverbank, shoes sinking into the damp earth. For a while, neither speaks. Birds skim across the water, wings cutting faint ripples that spread until they fade. Elijah picks up a small stone, turns it over in his palm, then tosses it. It skips once, twice, then disappears. "That's what change is," he says. One action, a few ripples, then gone, but the surface never looks the same again. Randall nods. "Feels small, though. Like no matter what we do, it'll fade." Elijah glances at him. "Everything fades. But that doesn't mean it didn't matter." Randall looks down at his reflection in the water, warped, uncertain. "You really think people will remember this? Tomorrow? Next week?" Elijah smirks. "They'll remember enough to talk about it. That's more than most get." Randall exhales. "You ever get tired of forgiving?" Elijah's expression darkens slightly. "You think forgiveness means letting people off easy? No. It means I don't let hate rent space in my head." He looks out across the river. "I've seen men die carrying anger heavier than any pack. I'm not carrying that weight anymore." Randall's voice drops. "And me? What am I supposed to carry now?" Elijah turns to him. "Responsibility. Not as punishment, as purpose." Randall nods slowly. "Maybe that's enough." Elijah studies him, the sunlight reflecting off the water into his eyes. "Your father came to see me before you did. You know what he said?" Randall shakes his head. "He said, he's a good man who forgot what good looks like. Help him remember." Randall looks away, blinking hard. He still believes that? Elijah smiles faintly. He's a soldier. We don't give up on our own. The sound of wind moves through the trees, soft and steady. The day feels lighter somehow, not fixed, not perfect, but human again. Back in town, social media explodes with new headlines. A veteran and an officer redefine justice. The Monroe moment, from conflict to conversation. For the first time in months, the news cycle ends not with outrage, but with reflection. Schools share the video in ethics classes. A community center hangs a new banner, "See before you act." At the Croft home, Thomas sits by the window, watching the same footage on his old TV. His eyes glisten as he sees his son, not defending himself, not hiding, just standing beside the man who once saved his life. He whispers to no one, "That's my boy." By sunset, the city of Monroe is quiet again. Elijah and Randall sit on the hood of the truck overlooking the river, both lost in thought. Randall breaks the silence. "You think this is the end?" Elijah shakes his head. "Endings are tidy. Life isn't." Randall smiles faintly. "Then what is it?" Elijah looks out over the water, the sky painted in streaks of red and gold. It's a beginning that looks like an ending. The best kind. They sit there until the last light fades, the river calm again, but different, like everything else. Evening creeps over Monroe slow and golden. The streets glisten from the day's heat, and the faint sound of crickets hums beneath the steady rhythm of traffic. From the riverbank, Elijah Brooks and Randall Croft watch the last light slip behind the horizon. The moment feels still, fragile, like glass between storms. Randall breaks the silence first. "You ever think about what happens next?" Elijah looks at him, one brow raised. "You mean after the world gets tired of talking about us?" "Yeah," Randall shrugs. "Feels like it'll fade soon. They'll move on to the next story." Elijah smiles faintly. "Good. That means we get to do the work while they're not watching." Randall chuckles softly. "You make it sound simple." "It's not," Elijah says, "but simplicity's never been the enemy. Noise is." He picks up a flat stone, turns it in his hand, and sends it skipping across the water. The ripples stretch outward, soft and endless. Before Randall can respond, Elijah's phone vibrates on the truck hood. Unknown number. He hesitates, then answers. "This is Brooks." "Major Brooks," a woman's voice says briskly. "This is Deputy Director Marlene Shaw, Department of Justice. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." Elijah straightens slightly, glancing at Randall. "Not at all, ma'am. What can I do for you?" "I saw the Academy footage," she says. "Frankly, everyone in D.C. has. It's rare to see something that real. The Attorney General wants to meet with you, both you and Officer Croft, regarding a new federal initiative." Elijah frowns. "An initiative?" "Yes," Shaw says. "A pilot program to reform community policing practices nationwide. We've been trying to find the right voices to represent both sides of the line, the enforcers and the affected. You two seem to be living proof that conversation works better than confrontation." Elijah glances at Randall, who watches him curiously. "You sure about that, ma'am? We've had less than 24 hours of peace." Shaw laughs softly. "And you've done more with it than some do in 20 years. I'm sending a car in the morning. Be ready by 7. The call ends. Elijah pockets the phone, the screen still glowing faintly. Randall tilts his head. "Who was that?" "Department of Justice." Randall's eyes widen. "Wait, D.C.? Elijah nods. "They want to meet." Randall lets out a low whistle. "You think it's legit?" Elijah smirks. "You don't call a veteran major if you're faking credentials." He looks back at the river, quiet for a moment. "Guess we're not done yet." Randall laughs nervously. "I was hoping for at least one quiet day." Elijah pats his shoulder. "You'll get it when you've earned it." Later that night, back at Elijah's home, the porch light flickers to life. The air buzzes with cicadas. Inside, he sets a kettle on the stove while Randall scrolls through his phone, reading comments under the latest video. "People are different tonight," Randall says softly. "Less hate, more reflection." Elijah pours 2 mugs of tea. "Don't confuse quiet for change. Silence is just space. What we fill it with decides what happens next." Randall nods. "I want to do this right. If we're really going to D.C., I don't want to sound like a guy begging for forgiveness. I want to sound like someone who's learning." Elijah takes a seat opposite him. "Then speak like that. Don't try to be what they want. Just be what you are. Proof that men can unlearn." Randall stares into his cup. "You think they'll listen?" Elijah sips his tea, eyes thoughtful. They'll listen. The question is, will they act? Thunder rumbles faintly in the distance. Not another storm, just summer heat settling into the horizon. After a long pause, Elijah says quietly, "You know, I almost didn't come back yesterday. When I drove off that first time, I told myself to forget it, to let the cameras handle it. But then I remembered your father." Randall looks up. "My father?" Elijah nods. "He once told me something in Vietnam. Said, if you don't walk back into the fire, someone else burns." Randall's chest tightens. "He told me the same thing when I joined the force. I just never understood it until now." Elijah gives a small smile. "Now you do." They sit in silence, the quiet hum of crickets filling the air. After a while, Randall says, "You think this program could actually change anything?" Elijah leans back. "Maybe not the whole system, but maybe one precinct, one city, one young recruit who decides not to reach for his gun first. That's how it starts." Randall nods. "One ripple." Elijah grins. "Now you're learning." Across town, Thomas Croft stands in his living room, packing an old duffel bag. Martha, his caretaker, watches from the doorway. "You really planning to travel again?" she asks. Thomas zips the bag shut. "My son's flying out tomorrow. I'm not letting him face Washington alone." She smiles. "You think he'll want you there?" Thomas grabs his cane. "He doesn't have to. I'll be there anyway." He looks at the photo on the wall, a younger version of himself in uniform, standing beside Elijah from decades ago. Both smiling, both alive in ways they hadn't been since. "Feels like we're finally finishing a mission we started 50 years ago," he murmurs. Midnight settles. Elijah sits on his porch, the tea long gone cold, the stars reflected faintly in the wet pavement outside. Randall stands nearby, arms crossed, lost in thought. "You ready for tomorrow?" Elijah asks. Randall nods slowly. "Ready as I'll ever be." Elijah glances at him. "You scared?" "A little," Randall admits, "but not the same kind of scared as before." Elijah smiles. "Good. Fear isn't the enemy. Complacency is." Randall looks out at the night. "You think people like us can really change something that big?" Elijah follows his gaze. "Every revolution starts small. With someone willing to listen, they fall quiet again." The night feels heavier, but not in a bad way. It's the kind of weight that comes with purpose. Finally, Elijah says, "Get some rest, Croft. Tomorrow, we speak for more than ourselves." Randall nods. "Yes, sir." As Elijah heads inside, Randall lingers for a moment on the porch. He looks up at the stars. So many of them, endless and quiet. For the first time, he doesn't feel like the man who lost everything. He feels like someone beginning again. The sun hasn't fully risen yet when the government sedan pulls up in front of Elijah Brooks's house. The air is crisp, carrying the faint smell of dew and exhaust. Randall Croft stands by the porch steps, duffel bag in hand, the first rays of dawn cutting across his face. Elijah opens the door before the car even honks. He's already dressed in his old suit, pressed but simple, the Bronze Star pinned neatly to his lapel. The sight of him makes the driver straighten instinctively, even before realizing who he is. "Major Brooks," the driver says. "Director Shaw sent me. We're due at the department by 9. Elijah nods. "Understood." He turns to Randall. "You ready?" Randall nods once, firm. "Ready." Before they can step inside the car, another vehicle pulls up. Older, louder, paint-chipped from years of use. Thomas Croft steps out, cane in hand, his posture stubbornly upright despite the tremor in his legs. Elijah's expression softens immediately. "Thomas." "Don't start," Thomas says. "You thought I'd let my boy stand in front of half of Washington without supervision?" Randall chuckles, but his voice wavers. "You didn't have to come, Dad." Thomas smirks. "You're right, but you'll thank me later." The driver opens the door. Elijah sits first, Thomas next, Randall last. As the car pulls away, Monroe fades behind them, the small town where everything began, already waking to another ordinary morning. The highway stretches straight and endless toward D.C. Elijah watches the landscape shift, from flat fields to crowded suburbs, from quiet to noise. The closer they get, the heavier the air feels, like the city itself holds its breath. Randall breaks the silence. "What do you think they want from us?" Elijah's gaze stays on the window. "A story they can control." Thomas grunts. "Then make sure they don't get it." Randall glances between them. "You think they'll listen?" Elijah shrugs. They invited us, didn't they? That means they're afraid of being the ones who didn't. Thomas leans forward. You boys talk too much strategy. Sometimes all you need to do is tell the truth and let it hurt. Elijah smirks. Still the same old colonel. Thomas chuckles softly. And you still think I don't mean every word. By 8:45 a.m., they arrive at the Justice Department. The building looms tall and pale, flags fluttering in the morning breeze. Reporters crowd the steps, cameras flashing as the car doors open. Elijah steps out first, calm as ever. Randall follows, trying to ignore the barrage of shouted questions. Major Brooks, are you working with the department now? Officer Croft, is this part of your reinstatement deal? Is forgiveness the message here, or reform? Elijah raises a hand briefly, silencing the noise without saying a word. Thomas hobbles behind them, cane tapping rhythmically on the marble steps. The cameras turn toward him. The father of the disgraced officer. The soldier who raised two men from different wars. Inside, they're led through security and down a long hallway lined with portraits. Men and women who wrote laws that built and broke the nation. The final door opens into a vast conference room filled with officials, aides, and cameras set discreetly in the corners. Deputy Director Marlene Shaw greets them with a firm handshake. Major Brooks, Officer Croft, Colonel Croft, thank you for coming. Ex-officer, Randall corrects gently. Shaw smiles politely. For now, maybe. She gestures toward a polished table surrounded by microphones. We'll begin shortly. The Attorney General will join in 5 minutes. Until then, relax. This is informal. Thomas snorts. Nothing in this building is informal. Elijah hides a grin. He's not wrong. When the Attorney General arrives, the room rises. She's composed, sharp-eyed, and direct. Gentlemen, she begins, I've seen the footage. Twice. It's rare to witness accountability and restraint in the same story. What happened in Monroe has already shifted national dialogue. We want to build on it. Elijah folds his hands. Dialogue is easy, ma'am. Change isn't. That's why we're here, she says. We're launching a pilot initiative. The Monroe Model. A partnership between veterans, law enforcement, and community leaders. We'd like you two to lead it. Randall blinks. Us? Sean says. You represent both sides of the line, and both of you chose humanity when it mattered. Thomas leans back, eyes sharp. And what happens when the cameras turn off again? When no one's watching? The Attorney General pauses. Then we hope the people we empower will keep it alive. Elijah glances at Randall. And if they don't, then at least we tried, she answers. For a long moment, no one speaks. Then Elijah says, I'll do it, but only if it's real. No slogans, no photo ops, just training, truth, and uncomfortable conversations. Randall nods. Then I'm in too. Thomas smirks faintly. Guess that makes me the chaperone. The Attorney General smiles. Welcome aboard, gentlemen. Later in the hallway outside, reporters swarm again, but this time, Elijah doesn't avoid them. He stops at the podium set up near the exit, Randall and Thomas beside him. Yesterday, Elijah begins, this man and I stood on opposite sides of fear. Today, we stand on the same side of truth. Change doesn't come from outrage, it comes from listening. Randall steps forward, his voice clear. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure the next generation doesn't learn the same mistakes. That's what this is about. Thomas taps his cane once, firm, and if they forget, we'll remind them. The crowd murmurs approval. Cameras flash. The image, 3 men, 3 generations, united under a single purpose, fills every headline within hours. The Monroe Model, from conflict to change. That night, the city glows brighter than usual. Elijah stands at his hotel window, looking out over the Capitol lights. Randall sits nearby, tie loosened, exhaustion settling in. Thomas snores softly in the armchair, hat over his face. Elijah finally speaks. You did good today. Randall chuckles. So did you. Elijah's eyes remain on the city. No, we did. The silence between them feels different now. Not heavy, not tense, just earned. Outside, the nation keeps moving. Unaware that, in one quiet hotel room, a new version of justice has just begun. Night in Washington is never quiet. Even at midnight, the hum of the city refuses to rest. Sirens in the distance, horns from the avenue, a low murmur of power that never sleeps. Inside the 12th floor hotel suite, the air is still. Randall Croft sits by the window, tie gone, shirt sleeves rolled up. The glow from the TV flickers across his face. Every major network is showing the same footage. Him and Elijah standing at the Justice Department steps earlier that afternoon. Elijah's calm expression, Randall's careful words, Thomas's cane striking the marble with finality. Randall turns up the volume. A host's voice fills the room. Tonight, the so-called Monroe Model is already stirring controversy. Some call it a turning point for justice. Others call it theater, a photo op meant to pacify public anger. The screen splits between talking heads, politicians, activists, ex-officers. Everyone has an opinion. None of them were there. Randall sighs. They're already tearing it apart. From across the room, Elijah answers without looking up from the file he's reviewing. That's what people do when something threatens what they understand. They pick at it until it looks familiar again. Thomas stirs in the armchair, half asleep but listening. You boys expected applause? Randall glances back. No, sir. Good, Thomas mutters. Because applause fades faster than anger. Elijah closes the folder and sets it aside. They'll debate it until they forget why it mattered. Our job is to make sure the next time they argue, the world's already changed a little. Randall looks back at the screen. One commentator raises his voice. Let's be honest, no amount of feel-good symbolism will fix centuries of mistrust. A cop loses his badge, gives a speech, and suddenly he's a hero? Come on. Randall's shoulders tighten. He's right though, I don't deserve a platform. Elijah stands and walks over, shutting off the TV with one click. That's not the point. The point is that you're using the platform to give someone else a voice. Don't confuse criticism for cancellation. Randall turns to him. You really believe this'll work? I believe it has to, Elijah says. The room falls quiet again, save for the hum of the city outside. A soft knock breaks the silence. Elijah opens the door to find Deputy Director Marlene Shaw standing there, tablet in hand. Her expression is unreadable, part fatigue, part urgency. Sorry to interrupt, she says, stepping inside. We've got a situation. Thomas straightens in his chair. What kind of situation? Shaw exhales. Public reactions split down the middle. Half the country's applauding. The other half thinks this whole thing is an insult, that we're using veterans to clean up police PR. Randall mutters, they're not entirely wrong. Shaw gives him a hard look. Don't start that. You two gave people something real today. Don't let the noise drown it out. She sets the tablet on the table, tapping play on a live stream. The screen shows a televised panel, 4 men in suits and 1 woman, debating furiously. Major Brooks is being used, one man says. They parade him around to soften the blow of misconduct. No, another counters. He's showing what reconciliation looks like. That's leadership. Then a familiar face appears. Captain Hayes, Randall's former supervisor from Monroe. His uniform is crisp, eyes steady under the studio lights. I served with Officer Croft, he says. He made a mistake. But what he's doing now, that takes guts. You want reform? It starts with people admitting they were wrong. I'll stand with that any day. Randall blinks, stunned. Hayes? Shaw smiles faintly. Looks like you've got allies you didn't know you had. Thomas chuckles softly. See, not everyone's blind. Elijah crosses his arms. The problem isn't allies, it's attention. This country loves its headlines more than its history. Tomorrow, they'll be on to something else. Shaw nods. Which is why we move fast. The Attorney General wants you both on national television tomorrow morning. Good morning, America. Live interview. Randall's eyes widen. Live? Elijah doesn't flinch. We'll go. Shaw looks relieved. Thank you. I'll have transport ready at 6. She pauses at the door. And Major? You made believers today, don't lose them overnight. She leaves. The door closes with a soft click. For a long time, none of them speak. Then Thomas mutters, You realize half the country's gonna hate you tomorrow. Elijah nods. Half already does. The rest just doesn't know it yet. Randall paces the room, running a hand through his hair. I can handle hate. What I can't handle is them twisting what we said. They'll turn it into politics. Thomas chuckles dryly. Son, everything becomes politics when people are scared of change. Elijah turns toward him. Then maybe it's time we stop letting them define it. He looks at Randall. You still want to do this? Randall's eyes are steady now. Yes, because if I don't, then everything you did yesterday means nothing. Elijah studies him, then nods. All right, tomorrow, no scripts, no rehearsed lines, just the truth, even if it stings. Thomas grins faintly. Now you sound like soldiers again. Hours later, the room grows quiet. Thomas is asleep again, cane resting across his lap. Randall lies awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The faint glow of the streetlights paints pale bars across the wall. He whispers, "You think this country's ready to listen, Major?" Elijah, sitting near the window, doesn't look back. "Doesn't matter if it's ready. We speak anyway." Randall nods slowly. "What if I mess it up again?" Elijah turns toward him, eyes calm. "Then we keep talking. Change isn't one speech, Croft. It's every day after." The younger man nods, finally closing his eyes. Sleep comes slow but steady. Elijah stays awake, watching the city lights flicker far below. He can see the Capitol dome in the distance, pale, unmoving, eternal. He murmurs to himself, "Tomorrow's just another battlefield." Then he leans back, the city reflected in his tired eyes, waiting for dawn. Dawn breaks pale and quiet over Washington, the sky painted in muted streaks of gray and amber. The city hums awake beneath it. Delivery trucks groaning down Constitution Avenue, security cars idling by federal buildings, the first sirens echoing faintly through the streets. Inside the hotel suite, the light flickers across the walls as Randall Croft adjusts his tie in the mirror. His reflection looks older than it did a week ago, maybe even just yesterday. He still wears the same gray shirt and black jacket, but something in his posture has changed. Behind him, Elijah Brooks finishes a cup of black coffee. He doesn't bother with a tie. His old army jacket, pressed and simple, sits perfectly on his shoulders, the bronze star gleaming faintly beneath the soft light. "You look like you slept 2 minutes," Elijah says. Randall straightens his collar. "That's generous." Thomas Croft sits near the window, watching the sunrise creep over the Capitol dome. His cane rests across his lap, his hat beside him. "You boys talk like the sun won't come up if you don't sound ready for it." Randall smirks. "Feels like it's waiting on us." Thomas chuckles, low and rough. "Then stop making it wait." A sharp knock at the door interrupts them. Deputy Director Marlene Shaw stands outside, brisk and composed. "Car's downstairs. Studio's ready. You're on air at 8 sharp." Elijah nods. "Then let's go." The black SUV glides through the city streets, weaving past commuters and street vendors setting up for the day. The air smells faintly of rain and exhaust, familiar, grounding. Randall stares out the window as the monuments pass by. "You ever think about how small everything looks from here?" he asks quietly. Elijah glances at him. "Perspective's tricky. Up close, everything feels impossible. Step back, and it's just another problem to solve." Randall exhales. "Feels like we're stepping into another kind of battlefield." Thomas, seated beside them, mutters, "Difference is, this one's fought with words, and those hit harder than bullets when people are listening." They arrive at the Good Morning America studio just after 7:30. The front steps are lined with cameras, microphones, and flashing lights. Security ushers them through a side entrance, past bustling producers and makeup artists. A young production assistant meets them with a nervous smile. "Major Brooks, Mr. Croft, we're so honored to have you. The country's been waiting to hear from you both." Elijah offers a polite nod. "Let's hope they're ready for what they hear." In the green room, Randall sits beside Elijah while technicians adjust their mics. The walls are covered in framed photos. Presidents, actors, authors, all smiling under studio lights. Randall feels the weight of it. Elijah notices his silence. "You nervous?" Randall forces a smile. "Only about the part where I don't say something stupid in front of 10 million people." "Then keep it simple," Elijah says. "Truth doesn't need dressing up." Thomas stands in the doorway, leaning on his cane. "You remember that, son? Don't try to win. Just tell the truth and let it land." Randall nods, the words anchoring him. At exactly 7:58, they're led onto the stage. The studio glows under the bright lights, cameras angled from every direction. The host, a composed woman in a blue blazer, greets them warmly as they take their seats. "Major Brooks, Mr. Croft, thank you for being here," she begins as the countdown clock hits 0. The red light on the main camera blinks on. They're live. "Yesterday," the host continues, "the world watched something remarkable. A man once wronged, and the man who wronged him standing side by side. Tell us, what does this moment mean to you?" Elijah leans forward first, voice steady. "It means what it should have meant from the start. That justice isn't about vengeance, it's about recognition. I didn't come here to forgive anyone. I came here to remind this country that accountability doesn't make you weak." Randall listens, then adds softly, "And I came here to prove that admitting failure doesn't end you. It's the first time you start becoming what you were supposed to be. The host nods thoughtfully. Officer Croft, former Officer Croft, you said something yesterday that struck people. You said fear without judgment is prejudice. Can you explain that? Randall swallows, choosing his words carefully. We're trained to react, to treat every hesitation as danger. But when you let fear make your choices, it becomes easier to justify anything. That's when justice turns into control. The studio goes quiet. Elijah glances at him, pride flickering briefly behind his calm expression. The host turns to Elijah. Major Brooks, you could have let the system handle this. Why did you step back into the fire? Elijah smiles faintly. Because walking away would have made me no different than the man who stopped me. Change doesn't come from shouting across the street. It comes from sitting down on the same porch. Thomas, watching from behind the cameras, nods slowly. The host looks between them. Some people are calling this the Monroe Miracle. Others say it's performative, a convenient headline. What do you say to that? Randall answers first. It's not a miracle. It's a conversation, one that should have started long before I messed up. Elijah adds, and if anyone thinks it's performative, then good. Let them perform accountability too. A soft laugh ripples through the studio crew, quiet, respectful. The host leans forward. And what comes next for both of you? Elijah says, the Monroe Model begins next month. Training, community talks, and listening sessions across the country. If we can turn one confrontation into one connection, it's worth it. Randall nods. We're not here to erase what happened. We're here to make sure it doesn't happen again. The host smiles. That's powerful. Final words before we wrap? Elijah looks straight at the camera. Justice isn't a finish line. It's maintenance. Keep it clean, keep it fair, keep it alive. Randall adds quietly, and if you wear a badge, remember, authority isn't protection. It's permission to serve. The light above the camera flashes twice. The host turns back, voice bright again. Major Elijah Brooks and Randall Croft, thank you both for joining us. We'll be right back. The red light fades. Applause rises softly in the studio. Elijah exhales, standing slowly. Randall follows, his heart still pounding. The host shakes their hands warmly. That was incredible. You just gave people something real. Elijah nods. Let's hope they do something with it. As they step outside, the morning sun blinds them for a moment. Reporters shout questions, but Elijah doesn't stop. Randall doesn't either. Thomas meets them by the car, a proud grin on his weathered face. You two just changed the conversation, Randall smirks. Only if people keep listening. Thomas taps his cane. Then we'll make sure they do. Elijah looks up at the sky. Bright, clear, unbroken. One day at a time, he says. They climb into the car, the city glinting around them. For once, Washington feels quiet, not peaceful, just ready. The moment they leave the studio, the noise hits them like a wave. Outside, the air crackles with camera flashes and shouted questions. Reporters line the steps, elbows locked, microphones thrust forward like weapons. The sound is chaotic, dozens of voices overlapping, each one demanding something louder than the truth. Major Brooks, are you running for office? Mr. Croft, do you regret giving up your badge? Was today's interview staged by the Justice Department? Elijah keeps walking, calm and steady. Randall follows, jaw tight, eyes forward. They've faced worse noise before, the kind that comes from explosions, not headlines. But this is different. This is noise that bites. Thomas waits by the car, his cane planted firm on the pavement. When they reach him, he mutters, "You did good in there. Don't let the vultures tell you otherwise." Elijah opens the car door for him. "You ever notice," he says quietly, "truth doesn't make people calm, it makes them louder." Thomas grins. "Means you hit a nerve." They slide into the car. The driver pulls away fast, the chaos fading behind them. By the time they reach the hotel, the interview clip is already everywhere. Television, Twitter, headlines. Major Brooks and ex-officer Croft speak on forgiveness. Justice's maintenance goes viral. Critics call Monroe Model PR theater. On one channel, a senator pounds the table. "We don't need lectures from men who made mistakes. We need accountability," another commentator fires back. That's exactly what accountability looks like. It's called owning your failure. The arguments echo across screens, looping endlessly. Randall sits on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone. Every post cuts both ways. Some call him brave, others call him a disgrace. His stomach twists as he reads the comments. He's just trying to save face. At least he admitted it. They'll forget him by next week. He throws the phone onto the nightstand. They don't get it. Elijah pours himself a glass of water, taking a slow sip. They're not supposed to. Not yet. Randall runs a hand through his hair. Feels like it's all spinning again. Like no matter what we do, it gets twisted. Thomas, seated near the window, watches the city below. Let them twist. The truth's still the truth. They can stretch it, paint it, sell it, but they can't kill it. Elijah smirks. That might be the most poetic thing you've said all week. Thomas points his cane at him. Don't get used to it. Randall forces a laugh, but the tension lingers. You ever wonder if this'll actually work? He asks quietly. The Monroe Model, the talks, the speeches. What if it all fades? Elijah looks at him. Everything fades. That doesn't mean it didn't matter while it lasted. At noon, their phones buzz again, notifications stacked like dominoes. Elijah picks his up first. It's Shaw, he says. He answers. Yeah? Her voice is sharp, fast, the sound of a woman juggling chaos. Major, it's bad. Congress is calling for hearings on the Monroe Initiative. Some senators think we're politicizing law enforcement. They're demanding oversight before funding goes through. Elijah's jaw tightens. So they'd rather argue than act. Pretty much, Shaw replies. But there's more. A group of veteran associations want to meet with you. They're angry you're being used for politics. They're planning a press conference this afternoon. Randall hears and curses under his breath. We're losing control of the story. Elijah shakes his head. No, we just stopped controlling it. Shaw sighs. I'll handle DC politics. You handle the people. That's where you shine. He hangs up and turns to Randall. Get your coat. We're going to the memorial. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial stands quiet in the noon sun, black granite stretching out like a scar that never healed. Tourists mill about, snapping photos, leaving flowers. The noise of the city feels far away here. Elijah walks along the wall, fingers brushing the names etched into stone. His reflection merges with thousands of others, all those who never made it home. Randall follows slowly. You've been here before? Every year, Elijah says softly. Sometimes to remember. Sometimes to remind myself I still can. They stop midway down the wall. A small crowd gathers, mostly older veterans, some in faded uniforms, a few holding flags. Cameras linger at a distance but stay quiet. An older man steps forward. His voice is gravelly. Major Brooks? Elijah nods. The man salutes. We saw the news. Thought you should know. Not all of us are against what you're doing. Some of us think it's about damn time someone said it out loud. Elijah shakes his hand. Appreciate that. The veteran glances at Randall. And you took guts to face the world like that. Most of us don't admit our mistakes till it's too late. Randall's throat tightens. Thank you, sir. The man smiles. Keep doing what you're doing. Let the politicians talk. They don't bleed for this country. We did. He turns and walks away. The rest follow quietly, a few stopping to pat Elijah's shoulder or nod at Randall before disappearing into the crowd. When the last one's gone, Elijah exhales. That's the real vote that matters. Randall nods, his chest lighter. Feels like the world's starting to catch up. Thomas, standing a few steps behind, grins. Or maybe you two finally slowed down enough for it to meet you halfway. By the time they leave the memorial, the headlines are already shifting again. Veterans back Monroe Model. Public divided, dialogue grows. From viral clip to movement. In the car, Randall scrolls one last time and stops on a video. A young black recruit at the academy recording a message. Major Brooks came to our class last week. I joined the force because of him. Now I'm staying because of what he said today. Randall passes the phone to Elijah. Looks like it's starting. Elijah watches the clip quietly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. One ripple at a time. Thomas leans back, eyes closing. Told you boys, change doesn't happen loud, it happens steady. The city skyline glows ahead of them, sunlight bouncing off the marble, bright and hard and real. And for the first time, the noise outside feels smaller than the purpose inside. The corridors of Capitol Hill buzz like a hive. Staffers rush between offices, clutching folders and coffee cups, their voices blending into a steady hum of tension. News cameras line the marble hallways, waiting for the afternoon session, the Monroe Model congressional hearing. Elijah Brooks and Randall Croft step out of the elevator, escorted by Marlene Shaw. Thomas trails behind, his cane clicking rhythmically against the floor. Everywhere they look, eyes follow. Curiosity, doubt, admiration, and suspicion all sharing the same space. Shaw checks her tablet. We'll be in Committee Room 214. Expect cameras, press, and about a dozen lawmakers who'll want to make headlines more than progress. Randall adjusts his jacket. So, business as usual. Shaw gives him a thin smile. You're catching on fast. They reach the tall oak doors of the hearing room. Beyond them, a low murmur ripples through the packed bond chamber. Shaw pauses before opening them. They'll push hard. Don't give them anger. Give them calm. That's how you win. Elijah glances at Randall. We're not here to win. We're here to remind them what matters. Shaw nods once, then remind them loudly. She opens the doors. Inside, the room is filled to capacity. Senators on the raised platform, aides at their sides, reporters lining the back wall, and cameras trained on the witnesses' table. The seal of the United States glints above the dais, its eagle staring down like judgment. At the center sits Senator Halbridge, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, the chairman of the committee. He leans into his microphone. Major Elijah Brooks, former officer Randall Croft, and Colonel Thomas Croft, thank you for appearing on such short notice. Elijah nods politely. Thank you for inviting us, Senator. Halbridge's tone is measured but cold. The Monroe Model has sparked considerable national discussion, some positive, some, let's say, skeptical. We're here to determine whether this initiative serves justice or undermines it. Randall shifts in his chair but says nothing. The senator continues. Major Brooks, your service record speaks for itself, but tell us plainly, why should the federal government fund a program built on one man's mistake? Elijah's voice is calm. Because that one mistake represents thousands we pretend don't happen. The Monroe Model isn't built on shame, Senator. It's built on recognition, the kind of recognition that turns mistakes into lessons. Halbridge raises an eyebrow. So this isn't forgiveness? No, sir, Elijah says. It's accountability that doesn't end in a graveyard. A murmur stirs through the audience. The senator leans back slightly, studying him. Then he turns to Randall. Mr. Croft, some have accused you of seeking redemption through performance. Why should taxpayers believe you deserve a platform after what you did? Randall meets his gaze steadily. Because I'm not asking for a platform, Senator. I'm asking for prevention. I've already paid for my mistake. Now I want to make sure someone else doesn't pay with their life. Halbridge's lips tighten, but there's no rebuttal ready. Another senator, Miriam Ellis, speaks up from the opposite end. Major Brooks, she says gently, you've inspired millions with your composure, but some critics claim this model puts emotion above enforcement. What do you say to that? Elijah nods slightly. Emotions are what happen when enforcement fails. If understanding people prevents a bullet, that's not weakness, that's wisdom. Thomas leans toward his microphone, voice gravelly. If I may, I fought in wars where the enemy had no name. This isn't one of those. The enemy here is pride, not people. The room stills. Even Halbridge doesn't interrupt. Thomas continues. You can pass 100 laws, fund 1,000 programs. None of it matters if the men holding authority don't know what it costs to misuse it. Applause breaks out from the gallery before the chairman bangs his gavel. Order! But the moment has already landed. Cameras zoom in. Thomas Croft, the old soldier who raised a fallen officer, has just stolen the hearing. Halbridge clears his throat. Strong words, Colonel, but tell me, do you believe this program can fix generations of distrust overnight? Thomas smirks faintly. Nothing worth fixing happens overnight, Senator, but you start by not pretending it's fine. Another senator, younger and more brash, leans forward. Major Brooks, what do you say to the officers who feel attacked by this? Who say your message paints all of them as villains? Elijah meets his eyes evenly. If doing the right thing feels like an attack, maybe it's not the message that's the problem. Laughter ripples softly through the back rows. Even Shaw hides a smile. The chairman finally raises a hand. Gentlemen, let's keep this civil. Elijah folds his hands on the table. Civility's easy, Senator. Justice isn't. The room goes silent again. The kind of silence that fills the space when truth cuts too clean to argue with. After nearly 2 hours, the hearing adjourns. Reporters surge forward, shouting questions as the three men stand. Shaw intercepts them quickly, guiding them through the side exit. In the hallway, Thomas chuckles under his breath. You realize you two just made half the Senate furious? Elijah smiles faintly. Then maybe they finally heard us. Randall exhales, adrenaline still coursing through him. That was Something. Shaw joins them, tablet in hand. More than something. You just gave them a headline they can't spin. She scrolls quickly, showing the first alerts lighting up her feed. Brooks, Croft, and Croft silence Congress with truth. Veterans' words bring committee to standstill. Randall laughs softly. Didn't think honesty made good politics. Shaw grins. It doesn't. That's why it works. They step out into the afternoon sunlight, the air buzzing with distant sirens and the low hum of reporters still broadcasting outside. Thomas squints up at the Capitol dome. You know, for the first time, that place doesn't look untouchable. Elijah nods. Maybe that's the point. Randall glances between them. So what now? Shaw tucks the tablet under her arm. Now, gentlemen, you go make sure the world outside these walls remembers what they just saw inside them. Elijah looks at Randall, a faint smile crossing his face. One more battlefield down. Thomas chuckles, tapping his cane on the marble. And still a whole damn war to go. They walk down the steps together, side by side, sunlight gleaming off the marble. Three men who refuse to let one mistake define their world. Evening drapes itself over Washington like a slow exhale. The marble buildings glow gold under the last light, and the reflection of the Capitol dome shimmers faintly in the Potomac. The city hums, but softer now, as if the noise has learned how to listen. Elijah Brooks stands alone on the hotel balcony, the city stretching endlessly beneath him. The air smells of rain again, the faint promise of another storm waiting somewhere beyond the horizon. Inside the room, Thomas Croft sits on the couch, his cane resting against his leg. Randall stands by the window, phone in hand, scrolling through the day's headlines. Every outlet carries a version of the same story. The hearing, the exchange, the applause. The Monroe Model passes preliminary approval. Brooks and Croft, the conversation America needed. Congress divided, nation united in dialogue. Randall sets the phone down. We did it. Thomas looks up. You started it. That's not the same thing. Elijah turns from the balcony. He's right. Change doesn't start in a hearing room. It starts when someone decides not to walk away. Randall nods, a small smile tugging at his mouth. Then I guess we walk toward it. Thomas grins faintly. Now you sound like me. They share a quiet laugh. For a moment, it feels like something simple. A family, a purpose, a promise. Elijah crosses the room and turns on the TV. Every network replays the same clip from the hearing. Thomas's words echoing louder than the applause that followed. The enemy here is pride, not people. The line rolls over and over again, now a headline, a quote, a mantra. Elijah watches it once, then turns the TV off. You know what I like about truth? He says softly. It doesn't need our permission to live on. Randall sinks into the armchair beside his father. So what happens now? Elijah sits across from them. Tomorrow, Shaw drafts the first phase of the program. I meet with the Veterans Council. You'll speak at the next Academy intake. Thomas raises a hand, smiling. I've done my part. It's your turn now. Randall shakes his head. You're not done yet, old man. Thomas laughs. Son, I've been done since Vietnam. I'm just making sure the rest of you learn faster than we did. Later that evening, they leave the hotel and drive through the city. The streets are alive with a different kind of energy. Strangers nodding at them as they pass, veterans saluting quietly, police officers offering respectful glances. They stop by the Lincoln Memorial. The steps are slick from a brief drizzle, the air heavy with history. Floodlights bathe the statue in silver, every fold of marble glowing like something holy. Elijah takes a slow breath. This place never gets old. Thomas stands beside him, leaning on his cane. Still feels like the country's listening to him more than it listens to us. Maybe, Elijah says, but today, I heard more echoes than silence. Randall steps closer to the water's edge, staring at the reflection of Lincoln's face in the pool. You know, I used to think monuments were built for heroes. Elijah glances at him. What do you think now? Randall smiles faintly. They're built for reminders. Thomas nods approvingly. You might be worth keeping around after all. The three men stand there in silence for a while, the kind that feels full instead of empty. The world keeps spinning around them, camera flashes, tourists, distant conversations, but none of it touches the stillness between them. Finally, Elijah speaks. I've been thinking about something. About legacy. Thomas raises an eyebrow. You planning on dying already? Elijah chuckles. Not yet, but legacy's not about dying. It's about what survives after you stop talking. He gestures toward the reflection pool. We spent one day trying to fix something broken for decades. But if even one young officer decides to think before he pulls his weapon, that's a lifetime's work right there. Randall's voice is quiet. And if one father teaches his son to listen before he judges, that's another. Thomas grins, pride warming his weathered face. Now you're both talking sense. Back at the car, Elijah's phone buzzes. A new message from Shaw. He reads it aloud. Monroe Model passed in preliminary committee. Full vote expected next week. Congratulations. This is bigger than any of us now. He sets the phone down and looks at Randall. Bigger than us, but still needs us. Randall nods. Then we don't stop. Thomas leans against the car, looking up at the glowing Capitol dome in the distance. That's the thing about this country, he says softly. It doesn't change because it wants to. It changes because someone won't let it stay the same. Elijah smiles. Then let's make sure it remembers. They drive back through the city in silence. Traffic glides past, taxis, buses, headlights cutting through drizzle. Somewhere, a radio plays the evening news. Major Elijah Brooks and Randall Croft continue to push for unity. The Monroe Model is gaining traction nationwide. Elijah turns down the volume. Funny thing about unity, he says, people always think it means agreement. It doesn't. It means effort. Thomas nods slowly. Effort's the only thing that ever saved us. The car rolls through an intersection, headlights painting streaks across the wet pavement. Randall looks out the window, watching the city blur by. You think they'll remember today, a year from now? Elijah answers without hesitation. Maybe not the day, but they'll remember the feeling. That's how change works. Slow, quiet, permanent. Thomas chuckles. Permanent's a big word, son. Then let's make it earn its meaning, Elijah replies. When they reach the hotel, the city is calm again. The three men stand for a moment on the curb, looking out at the Capitol one last time. Thomas grips his cane tighter. You boys did good today. Don't ruin it tomorrow. Randall grins. No promises. Elijah chuckles. We'll take our chances. Thomas turns toward the entrance. You're damn right you will. They head inside, the glass doors closing behind them with a soft hiss. Outside, the rain starts again. Light, cleansing, endless. Inside, Elijah pauses by the lobby window, watching it fall. His reflection merges with the lights of the city. The soldier, the officer, the old man, all still standing. He whispers to himself, justice doesn't end, it just changes hands. Then he walks away, the sound of rain following him down the hall.